What's going on, everybody? It's the Humble and Blessed podcast. I'm your host, HBDZ. I'm here with
George G. Day. Hey, listen, man. I am so grateful. I'm so thankful. That I have met my brother. We did some work earlier last week, man. That is astounding. And so, for some of you guys that have been on my page, you've seen that. But just to tell you a little bit about me, for the ones that don't really know me, and when I say some of the things that I say, sometimes the people get me a little twisted, okay? But I think once I give a little backdrop of who I am, what I've done, the things I've done, and it's not being cocky. It's just that all I did was, when opportunity presented itself, I was prepared and I took advantage of it.
That's it.
Again, it's not being cocky. It's
Confident.
not being
Just
cocky.
being confident.
Yes. It's not being cocky. I'm just confident. One of the things that my mother always told me, son, number one, you're a leader. Number two, leaders don't do what everybody do. Of course, I was in church. They used to call me Black Jesus. My daddy was a deacon. My mother was a Sunday school teacher. So I was in church 3 to 4 days a week. School was my out. School and football and baseball was my out. So when I say these things, please, ladies and gentlemen, don't get this miscrewed, because a lot of times in people's psychic, they would hear people speaking about things that they have done, and especially if you're passionate. That's another thing. I'm a very, very passionate person. Sometimes people get that twisted. People think that I'm militant, or he's upset, he's angry. No, man, that's not it. When you're passionate about, I guarantee you, if you win the lotto, if you win whatever that whatever $1 billion is, I guarantee you, from Maine to Spain, Louisiana, Arizona, they gonna be able to hear that scream. They gonna hear that passion. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
But see, now what people fail to realize, and then what I do, I teach and what I do, you have to be passionate. But born and raised right in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Went to LaGrange High School. Played football, played baseball there. I was a quarterback there also too. I took our team for the first time that year in 30 or 35 years. We went to the playoffs that year, because LaGrange back in the 80s wasn't known for having a winning team. No. We went 9-1. We went to the playoffs. We should have went 10-0, but I ain't gonna call somebody's name. That bar beat us with, and then the time expired at our home game, at our home field. Played baseball at LaGrange. I was drafted out of LaGrange my senior year. First guy in kind of modern day time. They got 2 other guys that went to LaGrange, but they got drafted out of McNeese. That was back in the 70s. And then I came back around in the 80s. I got drafted by the New York Yankees out of high school. Even though I played football and baseball, football I was good in, but baseball was my passion.
Gotcha.
You're going to hear me use that word a lot, passion. Because a lot of people, they do things haphazardly and flippantly, but they don't do it with that love, that passion. You know what I'm saying? And so, and that was another way too. I'm gonna be honest, like I told you, man. School and athletics was my way out, because it was church, school, athletics, and other than that,
that was it.
Yeah, other than that, Medea kept me at the house. She was a kind of a hovering parent, and I appreciate that. To be honest, nowadays we need more hovering parents.
Yeah.
We need more hovering parents, and not these type of parents where they got these kids talking about my mama, my home girl, we go out together, my daddy, my best friend. No, that's your father and your mother, I was blessed to come through the stock of George and George W. and Molly H. Day. That's my mother and my father. Grew up in a two-parent home. I had the baby of 6, 4 sisters, and 2 boys, me and my brother. We've lost my older sister a few years ago. I pretty much grew up with my nieces and nephews, so it's a big gap. My mother had her first child at 13, and both of them, they've been gone. Daddy's been gone since '97. Mother's been gone since 2001. So I played ball in Oklahoma. I got inducted last year into the baseball hall. Me and 2 other guys. It's 3 of us. We got inducted into the Hall of Fame at LaGrange baseball. That was a great honor. The year before that, I got inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame at Northeast Oklahoma, where I attended and where I played. So, some pretty good accolades there. Didn't sign with the Yankees. Wind up going to North. I had just about every other school that was offering me scholarships. And I went there because of the simple fact where I wanted to go somewhere where I can play. Or it was more like this. When I would talk to scouts and they had plenty of scouts because I knew I was going to get drafted, but I didn't think out of high school. So all those guys have not taken nothing away from Caccini and not taken nothing away from Barb, but I was the pace setter. I was the front runner that brought the scouts to Lake Charles because they were just passing up I-10, hitting Lafayette, then getting up to Baton Rouge, then Mississippi and so forth. And I give credit to a great friend of mine. He's also my fraternity brother. We both members of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. Both of us been in over 30 years. He and we played on the 86 American Legion team, and we went to the American Legion World Series in Rapid City, South Dakota, and it was 85, 86 year, and it was all about him. We were the only two. We were the only 2 black guys on the team, and I give credit. I'm very thankful to Rodney. I'm always going to be grateful and thankful to Rodney because this is during the time when Bo Jackson was coming out of Auburn and so forth, and Rodney was built up just like Bo Jackson. And Rodney threw about between 95 and 97, and he had big old thighs. He was just like that. So Rodney hit the wire. So as we left the state of Louisiana and started going to all these other places, having to play in these regionals and this and that to get to the World Series, Rodney named the scouts and all of them, so they all was talking about Louisiana has this guy that can pitch, and he's hitting 95, 97, and he looked like Bo Jackson. So all the scouts started coming out, and Rodney was a year ahead of me, but all the scouts started coming out, and then all of a sudden they said, okay, we come to see him, but who's that little scraggly guy that's playing shortstop, second base? Nobody told us about him. So that's the thing, guys. I could go on and on and on. I was in the military, went overseas twice, 6 different countries. I've ran juvenile programs, facilities, secure, non-secure, sold cars for over 22 years. So I've done a lot of things, kind of been a lot of places, sold cars in Vegas, Phoenix, Tucson, Flagstaff, Houston, Katy, Charleston, South Carolina. So I've kind of been around, and I'm thankful of that because, and that's why I said I got to see things. And let me back up and say this: I didn't sign with the Yankees out of high school. Went to college, went back in the draft. Kansas City Royals picked me up. Didn't sign with those guys because we couldn't come to terms with money. And then my sophomore year, I got drafted again, and I wind up signing with them and everything and so forth. So that's went on to play ball with the Royals and everything. And so I've been in a lot of places and a lot of spaces. that most people from Lake Charles never get a chance to. But it's something like we were talking about. It's, being a leader, and when you had the parents that I had, that was always building you up and lifting you up and letting you know what the good Lord, created you on purpose and with the purpose, and you don't have to be intimidated by nobody. No, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can't do because of the melanin in your skin. I came from a family like that, a mother like that, okay? So I've always played with the big boys. I was always ahead of my class. And so I've been exposed. Exposure plays a big factor, D. And a lot of these kids, like you can say from Beaumont, I lived in Beaumont, sold cars in Beaumont, Lake Charles, Lafayette, all this I-10 corridor. A lot of these kids, I don't know where we're going now, the way the world's going, seem like a hell in a handbasket, but the exposure, if they would see other places, and I always tell them, hey, man, this world is way bigger than Beaumont, Lake Charles, Lafayette, all these places, and it really, really opens up your eyes. So that's what I mean by that. I'm not better than nobody. I mean, we're all humans. I just had opportunities, and I took advantage of them. And that's kind of what has shaped and molded me now that I'm getting closer to 60, to where it's kind of where we at. I do have my own companies called Coaching Champions LLC. I teach leadership. I am a leadership life development coach. I am a senior leadership life development coach also too. I go to different companies. I go and train their managers and teach them how to become leaders. I do keynote speeches. I go and do motivational speeches. So I do a little bit of everything when it comes to dealing with that, and I do corporate trainings. So what I did was I took all of my experiences and I encapsulated it all into one package.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the history and the life of George G. Day.
Yeah, I got you. I want to start with how was it to be so young and being able to live, I would say, a lifelong dream of playing baseball?
I'm glad you asked that question. And when I speak to kids, and even when I talk to people in different spaces and places dealing with jobs, number one, I have a great uncle. You can look him up. His name is Leon Day. He played in the Negro Leagues. He played with Satchel Paige, played with Jackie Robinson, all those guys, Buck O'Neil. He played with the Kansas City Monarchs, and he is in the Negro League Hall of Fame. So I guess baseball was kind of always in our blood. Mm-hmm. And when I grew up, like I said, my sisters and brothers, they were all gone. So I basically grew up just me, mom, and daddy. And my mother loved baseball. My father loved baseball.
Okay.
So when baseball, and all we had was that back then, you had that big floor model TV that you had to turn, you had that antenna on, and you had that antenna connected to the house. All you're going to get is 3 channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And you had to go outside and turn it to the right, turn it to the left, go back to the left, hold it right there. Pops, if I hold it right there, I got to stand there and hold the pole. So my mother was real big in it. She loved baseball. My father loved baseball. And let me give you just a little kind of tidbit with history. Back in the day, man, black folks, baseball was their entertainment. They would go to church. They would bring them a brown bag. After they get out of church, they would leave church and they would go down to the field, especially when they knew they had a baseball game, and they would be there all day. The stands would be packed. See, a lot of people don't understand that now because you don't see that many authentic black guys that are playing baseball anymore. So when I was 8 years old, if mom and daddy watching this game, you better not touch that TV. and I couldn't sit on the furniture either. I had to sit on the floor that had carpet. So it was my mind was getting inundated with it. My mind and my mother and father, they was passionate, boy, and they loved the St. Louis Cardinals. You know, Willie McGee, Ozzie Smith, you know, all those guys, man. I can go on. Big Jack Clark. I can go on and on. So after you start seeing something so much, and then I can remember you get up on Saturday mornings. You know, I had to do chores, and you getting up. It doesn't matter. You gonna be up by 7:00. You gonna make that bed and that. So, and then baseball season. I told you only 3 channels. So at 8 years old, man, and after listening to Vince Scully and Joe Gaggiola, and and watching all these old heads, Joe Morgan and Davy Lopes and Pete Rose and Big Dave Winfield. After looking at all these guys and you watching this and your mind is getting inundated with it, at 8 years old, I said to myself, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play professional baseball. Of course, a lot of people thought I was crazy. I got the picture fixed in my mind because it would just rolled. And that's kind of what moved me to that. And then, of course, I had to work at it and so forth. But, yeah, that's how I got into it.
Man, that's awesome. So from your baseball career, you transitioned to?
After I played ball with the Royals, and after my baseball career, then that's because I before playing pro ball, in high school in summertime, I never worked. And my dad used to tell my mom, he's not getting a summer job. He's gonna play recreation ball, Legion ball, all that stuff, because that boy gonna do something one day. He's gonna make something of himself. That's how my father was. Because my sisters and them, they would get mad because when they came along, Mama had made them go get a job. My pops was on my side. And I know I was kind of living my pop's dream because my father loved baseball also too. So after I got out of baseball, I wound up moving to Beaumont, and I wound up getting into the kids business. Didn't know nothing about it, so I had to be in my mid 20s,
Okay.
early 20s, mid 20s, and I wound up having to work. And the next thing you know, I didn't know nothing about the kid. We called it the kids business back then,
Okay.
And that's how I got into kids business. That was my first job, and it was way different back then. You were called house parents. So you had the house parents, and then you had a third wheel that would work with them. And I was their third wheel. And these kids weren't nothing like these kids. That's why they call them basic care kids. So I never forget. I would work 4 days. When you're on duty, you stay there. They have an apartment for you that's connected to the house and everything. The company I worked for was a great, great company. These kids, it's unbelievable how they lived. I mean, this company really is. So I got into that, man, and I was about 24 years old. And so I'm still young myself, you know what I'm saying? So you got kids that are 16, 17 years old, and they attached themselves to me. I kind of got attached to them, and I enjoyed it. I really did. That's why we was all, as soon as they would get out of school, they knew Mr. George had something getting ready to go on. And then that's the old saying, you never know who's watching you. And so I did that for 6 months, and I enjoyed it. And I'll never forget my administrator, Randy Daniels, had called me in his office. And he had been watching me and the way that I interacted with the kids, how I would de-escalate situations that would come along, because that's real big. Dealing with the conflict resolution cycle and dealing with kids that have some issues. You got to know how to communicate to connect. They got to respect you. And he saw all those things. And he called me and he told me, we're getting ready to build from the ground up with some land across the street. We're going to have some tougher kids. It's going to be a lockdown unit. It's going to be a residential treatment facility. It's going to be a lockdown unit. Even they're going to have a seclusion room. The furniture and everything is going to be bolted down to the floor. I was like, good God Almighty. I mean, I'm sitting there saying to myself, what Randy called me in there for? This. So, and he said, I just watched you. Now, I want to offer you the director's job over that. And, of course, just like any brother, okay, all that sounds good. If I'm going, I wasn't afraid of anything, so if I'm going to do that, what's the pay? And when he told me what the pay was, I'm in. And then he was like, you will also have input in, as they were engineering and building the facility, you will get a chance to see it and you'll get a chance to have input. So, and I loved it. That's how I got into the kids' business.
Wow. How long did you do the kids bit? Like, how long did you stay there?
Between selling cars and in the kids' business, I would say, because I went on to work other programs, started other programs for other companies. Man, it's been over 25, 26 years. Because I would work the car business. I'd be like, okay, I done worked 2 years. I had enough of that. I got to go back. And I go back, and like a lot of my fraternity brothers, they would be like, man, you like working with them bad kids? I was like, man, these kids are not bad, man. You just got, and all I had to do, as opposed to some folks, they had to do all these scare tactics. No, because when you develop a relationship and you have passion, that's the key. When these kids see that you really care about them, because, man, when you read some of their files, some of the stuff that they're coming out of, it's amazing that they're still functioning.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. I agree with that. So, over time, did you stay doing the because you were juggling both? At some point, you just transitioned to just selling cars, or
right? Exactly, because I was going back and forth. Like I said, maybe 2 years I sell cars. I'm like, all right, I done had enough of this, and I go back, and because I've had it now, I got administrative experience. I've got my credentials, all that type of stuff. So other programs, and it's it is what it is. A lot of the kids are minority kids, and a lot of the companies I work for were nonprofit 501c3s. So they know it is what it is. Our kids are going to be able to relate to their own. And so then I would do that. And then when I get burnt out on that, then I go back to the car business. Then I go back to the kids business. And then that last rip, I would say from about the last 16 years, it's been strictly the car business.
I got you. So then from there, what it leads to what you're doing now?
Yes, yeah. So what I did was simply this. I was in the military also. So what I did was I took all my life experiences, and I always ask God, why did you allow me, little country boy from Lake Charles, 2905 North General Wainwright, whoever would have figured, whoever would have thought. A lot of people didn't think I would become nothing. And when I started talking about playing pro ball, they all thought I was crazy. And then when I made it, they was like, oh, we knew he was going to do this, do that. But so what I did was I took all my experiences and all the places that I have been, and I said, you know what? I'm going to put my own program together. So, and it's not being defiant. It's not saying that, oh, we can't work for somebody else. Man, I did it for so long.
So before you put your own program together, you was doing it somewhere else? Or?
Oh, yes.
Okay, got you. So you were doing it somewhere else. Then you seen how stuff was going.
Absolutely.
You decided to put your own program?
Yep. I worked the wilderness program.
Okay.
With Vision Quest. I worked in Philadelphia, inner city, on Broad Street. That was a real big eye-opener, And now all this is after working in Texas. Texas was a gravy. That was a cakewalk. Yeah. that was a cakewalk. And if anybody know anything about wilderness camps, It was out in Tucson,
Okay.
and you're dealing with real, as they would say, gangsters. These are kids that are 15 years old, 13 years old, and a part of gangs out of Chicago, out of L.A., and they have murdered someone. So this wasn't no basic care kids like the other ones. So, but they put them, instead of locking them up, because they were underage and they knew that they wouldn't be able to survive in there with those other boys, because some of those kids, they had life. They got life. But we were so far up in the mountains. Where are you going to run to? So that's what I mean by I've worked secure and I've worked non-secure. So, but what I learned when I worked the wilderness camp out there, to where you're in the desert, and you way up there in the mountain. I mean, where you gonna run to?
Yeah,
especially
nowhere
if
to
you're
run.
from Chicago, where you gonna go? Even if you're from LA, how you gonna orientate yourself? So, and I used to tell my staff, if they want to run, they'll come back. Because once they get out there at nighttime, they start hearing them boys from the city. They start hearing them coyotes and hearing all them screams in the desert at nighttime, and rattlesnakes and all kind of stuff. And at nighttime, it gets cold. It may be hot during the daytime, but it gets cold in the desert at nighttime. So when I tell them, they'll be back. I tell them, do your proper protocol. Call their probation officer, let them know this and that, blah, 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 blah. Now, of course, when they come back, they're going to get sanctions. This is going to put more time, on their, with them being there and everything and so forth. So I just took all of that. Then I went with that same company. They asked me to go to Philadelphia. And I worked day treatment. These are kids, same thing, on probation. Some kids got some pretty tough backgrounds with the law, but they're teenagers. And a city teenager kid is totally different from, I call them, these country kids down here where we're at. They act a whole different way. They come from a whole different angle. They're really, you might got a 13-year-old kid, but he has the mind because he's seen so much and living in the inner city, he may be 13, but he's on the level of an 18-year-old. It's kind of like one of those things, right? And North Philly, it was in Germantown, and a lot of people don't understand and don't realize that Temple is straight up in the hood. Straight up in the hood, brother. Yeah, Temple. Anybody went to Temple University on Broad Street, they'll tell you it's straight up Germantown, straight up in the hood. And I went up there. Basically, my position that I held, I was the assistant principal over day treatment, because Vision Quest, these programs have different layers. They just like Vision Quest had they had the wilderness camp. They had day treatment. So these kids, they can't even go to no type of school.
Oh, so that was with y'all, they was their last stop.
That was it. And we had a lot of gangbangers in there. We used to have guys come by too. And I remember when we had our first, it was a kid that was in the program. He was in one gang and the other kid was in another gang. And they drove by the school, man, and just shot it all up.
Wow.
And everybody ran to the back. This was my first time, experiencing this. And I'm like, man, what the heck is going on? So I'll never forget, one of the kids pulled me, come on, Mr. G, get back into the back. So they were, because they were used to that, So, this is some pretty rough kids. So what they would do, they would come to school during the daytime, and it really was a way of keeping them off the streets, okay? And it was trying to see if they can turn it around. Some judges would send them to us before he would send them to prison, and then when some of them getting out of prison, they would come to us. But they were all on some form of probation and in trouble with the law. So, yeah, it was an eye opener. So that, and they also too they had the Seaman program. Then I had started a program after I got out of the military. It was based out of Tampa, Florida. It's called AMI, Associated Marine Institute. And so I was already familiar with day treatment because I had ran the one for Vision Quest, in Philly. But this program was coming to Lake Charles, starting from the ground up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole big difference. That's my city. Everybody know me. That's my city. So I interviewed with the people, and they was like, "You're just what we need." And so what I did, I took all of those things, I encapsulated them. I said, you know what, I would like to run my own kids program, and not just kids program. I had so many ideas that was going through my head because I've done so many things, been so many places. And so with Coaching Champions, it's so many different layers. We deal with youth, speaking, all that type of stuff. So that's what I did. And that's what I'm doing now, and it's just trying to get people to understand these kids need mentoring. They need so many different programs of prevention right now, more than ever, because when you're starting to see 4-year-old kids, 6-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids are shooting each other, Houston, we got a problem,
Yeah. I agree with you. When we talked about it before, we definitely do have a problem. So, what in the beginning, what inspired you to want to do the motivation of speaking and do those type of things? Was it something that you experienced personally, or was it just something that you saw from dealing with all the kids? That's what put
exactly.
you in it?
That's exactly right. So, being the administrator and being the director, and there were some things that I had to sanction. The kids did some things that they had to come see me. You know what I'm saying? They had to deal with me personally, not with just my staff. They had to come see me. And then what I started doing was I never would embarrass the kid in front of the other kids. That's the worst thing that you can ever do. You're gonna get pushed back, and you're gonna get in a power struggle.
Yeah.
So I would bring them in my office, and I would always have another staff with me, because you never want to be left alone with a kid, male or female, not behind closed doors.
Yes.
That's just a tip for some people. That's some tip for some people.
So I want to ask you something. So dealing with the motive, dealing with that, what was it something that you realized early on was the problem?
With the kid. Well, let me back up and say this. So what I would do after I would deal with the kid, then I would tell the staff, bring everybody collectively. We had a day room.
Okay.
Then I want to talk to everybody, and I want to address this issue. Okay? And, I'm a former drill sergeant, so when I came across, and it was like, and I would like, if the shoe fits, wear it. I kind of just came in and didn't pick on that kid that did it, but I would come in and I would reiterate, the handbook. The policy. You guys know the SOP. And they would be like, da-da-da-da-da, and I would always, and I'd be walking from one end of the thing to the other end, and then they'd be sitting there like soldiers, and I realized, I'm like, hey, and I went home and I started practicing in the mirror, and then I'll just be honest with you, and then one day I heard a Les Brown tape years and years ago. I was like, this is what I'm kind of like that one that was saying, you know what? I think this is my next move. So that's how I got into the. It was a motivational thing, but I've always been a leader. So when I started studying, and I realized to where way before anybody was even talking about life coaches and so forth, I had already went through. Just like with Toastmasters, I went through all that, won all that stuff. Dale Carnegie. How to win friends and influence people. I did all that way back in the day, and and when we had to get up and speak and everything and do what we had to do, your peer, the people in the class, not the facilitator, but the people in the class would vote who had the best, So, and I won a lot of those. So you were getting ready. What were you saying again?
No, I was just asking, because dealing with those kids. I was just asking, like, was it something like, because you deal with a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
Was it something early on that you realized was something that you wanted to target? Like, dealing with a lot of kids, you realize maybe it's a lot of stuff that they dealing with at home that they project to the world.
Absolutely, 100%. What you're 100%, D. You know, like I said, I didn't do all that hooping and hollering and screaming like a lot of people do. Okay, and even if I was, sometimes my staff never even knew if I was, in the building or whatever. And if I would hear them, because the more that you go up, the more that your octave, more that you escalate, the more that kid is going to escalate. And now it's what we call, now you're in a power struggle. You've lost.
Oh yeah.
You've lost, right? So, and now, I would, and all I had to do was come out my office and say, Jeremiah, my office. Y'all don't have to walk him. He know where he's going. He'd come in there, and I would sit him down, and okay, now give me a recap. My biggest thing, what I taught them was, don't lie to Mr. George. You lied to me, I ain't working with you. And you got to work with these kids like that, because I'm telling you, man, when you read some of their files, and I guess because also too the buck stopped with me of who we were going to take and who we weren't going to take. I had a clinical director, clinical team, and so forth, but I still had the final decision. And then also too, our contract would say there's just certain kids at certain places where I work that we couldn't touch at all. So I would talk to the kids, and I don't want to hear nothing about my staff. I already know, because that's the first thing they're going to do. Mr. George, it's your staff. No, what did you do? What did you do? I taught them how to take ownership for their actions.
I got you.
So after I started doing that, man, and I just started saying to myself, man, these kids, because they act tough in front of their peers. Uh-huh. That's why I always did mine. I isolate them. You have to isolate them away from their peers, especially if they're acting a donkey, acting like that's what they know. That's the first thing. That's the first thing they know. Oh, Mr. George called you a donkey. If you're going to act like a donkey, I'm going to call you a donkey, But they knew that I cared. That's the key, though.
And that's what I was about to ask.
They knew that Mr. George cared. I had passion for them. And it wasn't that I would do things to try to buy them to have good behavior, because I got the pen. You in my program. And if you cut up enough and I get tired of dealing with you, all I got to do is call your probation off. Hey, man, I'm done with him. And I got all his write-ups with him, and also, too, you can take that, too. I don't care where y'all send him, because I have stacks this high of kids waiting to get into the programs. And I never threatened them with that, but I just told them, I mean, you're going to put your own self in some hot grease, and you're not going to have a person like Mr. George to call you in to let you get stuff off your chest and this and that. And a lot of times I would ask him, then I'd just tell me what happened. And then after they would, I'd say, just don't lie to me. And they would say what they have to say. I said, well, okay. And then they'll turn around and they would check their own stuff and say, Mr. George, even though that took place, I was still out of line, because I know I'm not supposed to curse staff, this, that. And so I started saying, man, you know what, man? Just for these kids to have that type of normacy, man, I mean, Dave, I was to sit up here and tell you, and a lot of kids, when it come time for them, their release date is coming up, man, that's when they would act up. And then that's when I would tell them, bring them to me. What's going on? I already know, because I've been doing it for so long. They know that they got a few more days, they're going to be released, and they're going back into that environment. They was in a safe space when they was with the program. They didn't have to worry about nobody trying to hurt them They had a roof over their head. They had a bed. They had showers. A lot of these programs I worked for, man, some of these kids had some of the best of the best. They had way more better stuff than I had been growing up, you know. So I just took a loving and a passion to that, man. It's just, I did. I took a passion to them. They took a passion to me, and I just kind of like the good Lord took it from there. And that's why I started telling my fraternity brothers and other guys, man, these aren't bad kids. To be honest with you, we could have been in the same situation with these kids. We was just one choice away, and we could have been right here where these kids are at. See, that's the key. We always want to demonize and patronize other people for what they did, and you know doggone well. And that was another thing I looked at. I never was a thug. Just because it's kind of like this, you know. People think because you wasn't a thug. People think because you didn't sell drugs. People think because, you know, they try to look at certain things. Negative behavior is negative behavior. They start trying to put it in category. This one weighs a little bit more than the other one. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's not like that, D. You know, I mean, you know, even for the ones that are Christians, they know sin is sin. It doesn't matter. And that's what a lot of people was doing, is trying to say, well, at least he did that. I didn't do nearly what he did. But you hear just like they're here.
That's true.
So quit comparing your situation to this other kid's situation, because you ain't squeaky clean. That's why you're here. But our society do that, though, you know. So, and that's just one of the things, man. And then when I started looking and going to other places, flying around, going to a lot of conferences, it just, and looking at, especially being a black man and dealing with predominantly minority kids, to where and understanding the dichotomy of the black home, how fractured and flawed it was, and what I mean by that, to where, you know, either the daddy's dead, the girl may have had the baby young at 15, 16. I mean, you got kids trying to raise kids. And the one thing that I do know is this, D, you can't teach what you don't know. You know, so, and that just was one of those things, man, to where as I started getting older and older, and as I started understanding how the system worked, and the system is very, very, very slanted when it comes to dealing with people that look like us. And I started understanding the business, because I understood billing and how all that stuff worked. And it really, really made me open my eyes to where these kids just have no idea what's really going on. This thing is bigger than 3 hots in a cot, you know.
That is true. That is true. So as you was doing this, what was some of the early things that you had to overcome, you know, constantly doing the motivational things and going out and talking to the kids? And what is one of the things, like some of the hurdles I see that you had to deal with?
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I still would deal with some of the hurdles right now, and I'm gonna look at the camera right in the square at the camera and everything. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it stimulates back to, yes, we say the home. First of all, everybody want to point fingers at each other. It's the home. It's the school. It's the church. Well, you know, I got to a point and started saying, okay, we need to stop talking about what the problem is. We need to come together and we need to formulate some solutions so that these kids, they're not making it past 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, 16. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, you turn the TV on. So my challenge is this. Yes, we know that we talk about all the things that we already know. So my thing is, what are we going to do to help to fix it or to make it better? And stop making excuses. I always tell people, excuses are tools that incompetent men and women use to build monuments of nothingness. The bottom line, you always want to quote the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a kid. I get it, I got it. They just need to be dealt like we was back in the old days. The old days ain't going to happen with these kids. These kids will blow your head off. You could talking about pulling a belt or something out like that. See, that's what people that don't understand the evolution of where things are at now. These kids are really, really crying out, and they just looking for love in all the wrong places, D. So my thing is, my thing is, when people that say those type of things, my thing is, what are you doing? Because John F. Kennedy said it best. One person can make a difference, but we all should be trying. One person can make a difference, but we all should be trying. Now, D, I got to say this, and it may be hurtful to some people, but it's the truth. Okay? I'm not dealing with no other race. I'm talking about my people. I'm talking about people of color. Now, you know all the stuff that our ancestors went through during the time of slavery, during the time of Jim Crow. We were a tight-knit people at once upon a time. So when you want to talk about why these kids are the way that they are, we let them down. We let them down because we chased the careers, we chased the bag. Yes, nobody won't say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to always keep it 100. We letting them down because we used to always, we had hovering parents, the community. We got to police our own community. That's what happened back in the day when we talk about, man, Miss such and such, if I did such and such, she would do this and that. And what was taking place? You had the community policing the community. And then they would go tell your mom, and then they bring you home to the warden, which would be your parents. You see what I'm saying? But we're not doing that now. Nobody want to get in the mud. All they want to do is talk about where the kids are at. But these kids are good kids, and that's what they are. They're kids, even though they're seeing a lot of negative things on TV and listening to a lot of negative stuff, because that stuff does play in. I always say this when I'm doing like a leadership teaching or whatever. What you intake the most is what's going to come out of you. It's a proven fact. That's a principle. A principle is a comprehensive fundamental law. When applied, it will work. It will work for you or it will work against you. Just like we have the principle of the law of gravity. The principle of the law of gravity says what goes up, what's going to happen?
Must come down.
That's a principle. And you can pray, you can speak in tongues, whatever you want to do. You get up on that third floor and sing R. Kelly's song, I Believe I Can Fly, and watch what's going to happen to you. So so we have let these children down. We really don't know how, when we was raised, what was going on. They were actually policing us, the community, the people in the community was. What I mean by that, we had boundaries. We were accountable. Because if we stepped across the lines of those boundaries, if we didn't stay accountable to the boundaries or to the expectations, we knew that they were going to have consequences.
Right.
And those consequences just wasn't vain things that mom and daddy would say. They were consistent. So you knew. If you cut up in the store, cut up at church, you knew you was going to get it at home. But this is the key. A lot of these kids is what people don't understand. Some of these kids, they are immune to being beat. So that ain't going to get it. That's punitive action. You need discipline. There's a difference, ladies and gentlemen, between punitive action and discipline. Punitive action teaches you nothing. That's punishment. It does nothing. That's like move this rock from over here and go bring that rock over there. Okay, now go get that rock and bring it back over here. What did you learn from that? Nothing. But discipline is different. Discipline is a teaching mechanism. It has consequences and so forth. It's a teaching mechanism. You have good consequences and you have bad consequences. It teaches the kid about positive reinforcement, and it teaches the kid about that if you make bad choices, you're going to have negative consequences. You know what I'm saying? So when these guys and these folks start saying all this, yeah, it does kind of get under my skin. I ain't gonna say it kind of does. It does.
It does.
And what's so killing about it, that's why I keep saying, we have let these kids down. I ain't did nothing. Yeah, yes, you did. Because if our ancestors and our grandmothers and grandmothers wouldn't have kept us together and so forth, guess what? Would have been out of control, even though we may not have all of the things that these kids have access to. But a lot of us wouldn't have turned out like this. A lot of us wouldn't have turned out like this. But the thing about it is, this is our future.
It is.
This is our future.
It is.
This is our future, and all we want to do is just cut them up. And I'm here to tell you, every day that we don't do something collectively, that's the word, the key. Collectively, D. Collectively. Yeah. So that's why I say again, and I look dead smack dab in that camera right there. We have let these youngsters down. What are we doing now? We ain't doing a doggone thing. You know why? Because we can't come together collectively. Bob Marley said it best, unity.
Yeah, we talked about that before, and I said, we in the times where if you're going to speak, you got to have a plan. I think most times when people do speak, their intentions be good, but there's no plan. So we can get up, we can speak, we can tell them, hey, tell them our life story, what we've been through, and try to guide them what not to do. But what's the plan after that?
Here's how it works, okay? So say, for instance, that's why early on I always said when the kid came to have to deal with me, I always let the kid speak first. See, that's our problem. We always want to take the role or start chastising before we even get the truth. Watch this. I'm fit to share something with you guys. I had one kid, I had did something before, and I learned from that. Okay? He came in my office, and I said, it's a method I used to use, and it's very, very helpful, ladies and gentlemen. You take a piece of paper, and you know how you fold it, like when you go to a banquet, it has your name on it and everything, like a little card, like a little cue card or something.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? And that's something that I learned years ago. So what I would do, because if not, you're going to be back and forth. And there's no resolution going to come out of that, okay? Only thing that's going to happen, you're going to get hotter, the kid going to get hotter, the staff going to get hotter. No. So what I would do is take a card, make a half out of it. On one side of the card, I would put listener. On the other side, I would put speaker. So whichever side the card is on, if the card is on the side to where I'm supposed to be listening, I cannot, you have to get you a piece of paper and a pen and a pencil, right? And what you would have to do is, as I'm speaking, because you can, if you're listening, you cannot, and I had an hourglass. See, it's different things that we can do to make this thing work. So I turned the hourglass over, and I always took that card and placed it. I'm going to always be the listener first, and that kid's going to always be the speaker first. And guess what? And I let him get it off your chest. Don't lie to me. Tell the truth. I mean, just break it down. And if my staff was wrong, I'll go back and I'll look at and I'll tell them. I'll go back and I'll look at and that's not selling the staff out. That's staff that's just not doing what they know they're supposed to do. I need people to do what they're supposed to do even when I'm not there. So this kid just spilled his whole heart out. I say, and then you let him, I say, and then I'll ask him, because if the hourglass is flipped and all the sand is down, I would ask him, do you need another 5 minutes? I'll flip the eye. If they say yes, I flip the hourglass back over, and then I look at my watch. So you got 5 more minutes. So this one kid, he cried. He got everything out that he wanted to say. I said, are you done? He said, yep. I said, okay. Now turn the card around. It's my turn now. Now, Miss George, you know what? Mrs. George, listen, I'm going to take my lick because I was wrong and I could have conducted myself better. I do know that handbook. These kids know right from wrong, but it's how you come at them. Mm-hmm. It's all about respect. See, we think just because we're adults, we can talk down to kids any kind of way. But when they talk to us any kind of way, you disrespecting me. But these kids feel that same way now.
That's true.
To get respect, you got to give it. So I learned something from that, and I said to myself, you know what? We don't listen to these kids enough. They got so much in them up here and in here. And when they trust you, they're going to pour it all out on the line. And you know what the kid said? I said, it's my turn now. He said, Miss George, I'm totally wrong. I knew I shouldn't have cussed your staff, blah, 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 you know. And he said, I'll take my lick, you know. Mm-hmm. I'll take my lick. But look at what I did first. I let him speak. And I learned from that to where every kid that I dealt with, you go first, you know. And then you know what he said? He said, I'm good, Mr. George. I'm good now, Mr. George. I know I know I'm going to get sanctioned and this and that, and I take my lick, I take ownership. But he said this that really blew me out the water. And this is what most people don't understand. Quit talking about the kids and get to a point to where you can understand what's going on with this kid. You know what he said? I just had to get that off my chest, Mr. George. I'm good. And that is the truth. They got so much stuff in them. And here's the other part. These kids know if you're authentic or if you're a goat or donkey. Oh, they got great discernment. They know if you really care about them and you have passion for them and if you really want to help them to put a systematic plan of development to get them back on course, you know, and make good choices, this and that. Man, these kids know who care, and they know and these kids know the ones that care and have passion for them, just like they know the ones that's just there to get a check.
That's true. That's true. But I'm gonna ask you one more thing before we go, because you know this is gonna be the first minute we sit down and we talk. What is the biggest obstacle currently right now that you feel like you want to overcome?
It's getting people of color to understand the only way that we're going to get ahead, the only way that we're going to have a voice, the only way that we're going to reach our children, you know, our children, the only way that this is going to take place, we're going to have to put our egos down. We're going to have to put jealousy down. We're going to have to put envy down. And we're going to put all these little idiosyncrasies, you know, because we all live in these little small towns or whatever, or we run in some of these circles. It's not about you and I. It's about our community, and it is about our children. It is making sure. See, we make this thing too much about us. One thing I love about my Caucasian brothers and my Latino brothers, because I played ball with them, did everything, slept with them the whole nine. One thing I know about them, they may have a dispute, but guess what? Especially my Latino brothers, especially when they drank when they drank that tequila, they juiced up. You know, they may have an altercation that night before, but after they sleep it off, they come to the clubhouse. They cool. But with us, we hold something against somebody that happened 30 doggone years ago. Yeah. 30 years ago. Until we come together in unity, collective. Dr. King talked about this. Malcolm talked about this. Garvey talked about this. You had many, many more of our leaders talked about this. Until we come together. It's the same way right now. Nobody, and I don't want to say, I don't want people to fear us, but nobody don't listen to us. We're not worried about them dang on black folks. They can't even, listen, they can't even come together and agree on something was right and wrong. That's number one. And watch this. And number two, these folks don't even really, they don't even understand how much money that they got coming out of their community. $1.5 to $1.8 trillion are coming out of the black community. Other than the United States and the European Empire, you know, there's only other 8. Listen to what I'm saying now. Only other 8 countries. Other than that, we got way more money than them. That's just coming out of our community. But it means nothing. We're still poor people individually. But that's what Dr. King then was talking about. But when we consolidate and we pool our resources together, now some things will take place. They will listen to us. Why you think that our ancestors and Dr. King them did sit-ins and boycotts and so forth? Why you think they went in with Black Wall Street when black folks pooled their resources and kept the dollar circumventing within our community? That is not racist. That is not hate. That is just, that's just sound, solid practice. You see what I'm saying? And look what happened. Because we didn't have to deal. And we're supposed to become self-sufficient. We don't want to always be dealing on the government for this and dealing on them for that. But we don't even trust our own selves. We don't even trust our own people. I'm going to and I love my white brothers. And I got some guys I can call right now too. If I needed $10,000, if I really, really needed $10,000, there's 2 white guys. They're not, of course, they're not from around here in Louisiana. I can call them. Both of them are nuclear physicists. And I guarantee if I called them and told them I need 10, hey man, look, I need some help. What you need, G-Day? I said, look, man, I need 10 grand. I'm going to get it back to you. Man, no problem. How you want me to send it to you? Well, let me tell you, I don't even want to know what it's for, G-Day. And these are white guys. So I'm not racist. I keep it 100. You know, that's why I tell people, can you, like Jack Nicklaus say, can you handle the truth? Nobody want to tell the truth, but until we confront the truth, nothing is going to change. Until we quit, everybody's running after the bag, and I did it. I did the same thing. But I'm like the prodigal son, but I came to my senses. Now I'm worried about legacy. I'm worried about, helping somebody else. I understand what the good Lord has placed me here for. I understand what it means by he's blessed me to be a blessing to others and so forth. People that just keep piling up as we get ready to conclude, but people that just keep piling up, it's greed. Greed. Greed is what's killing the black community. We don't have that passion and that love anymore. We got passion and love, but I think it was the OJs? I think it was the OJs, for the love of money. Yeah, for the love of money, people would steal from their brother. For the love of money, people will rob and kill their own mother. We are living in this dispensation. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to change? or you just gonna try to ride this thing out the way it is?
And look, on that note, man, I just you know, sometimes when you talk, you just gotta let you flow and get it off your chest.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that, man. But we definitely gonna have you back. This was kind of a little bit different. I just let G-Day flow, man, and let him speak his mind and let him say what he feel like we need to hear. You know, and like I said, it's gonna be the first of many because, like you said, you a person that reads a lot. You pay attention to a lot. You keep your ear to what's going on in the world. You know, so it was a pleasure just to have you come sit and just talk and just say how you feel and for people to get to know who you are.
I appreciate that.
You know, so I thank you for coming. And we'll see him again. Y'all definitely gonna see him again. And on that note, we signing out, man. This is the Humble and Blessed Podcast. We out. Peace.